Hi guys, it's Jenny and welcome to the BookTube Club in the new year in January. And if you're unfamiliar with the BookTube Club, it's basically the book club that I want to host or that I try to host at the end of each month where we can discuss all the books that we've read and usually provided with tea and cookies, though more than not I do fail at providing them. One of them. Today I failed at both. I do have Victory Vitamin though, which is the Chinese dupe for vitamin water, and this flavor tastes disgusting. The red one is pretty good though, but this orange one just tastes artificial and gross. And what I also got is this new teacup, and I found this when I got home today because I was actually over at my grandparents for Chinese New Year's and I was in Tianjin for a couple of days, and my roommate gave it to me because apparently she broke my green teacup. And let me quote her note. It says, "Hi, Jane. I've lived with that girl for 5 months in the same room, and she thinks my name is Jane." But no hard feelings there, so let's get down to business. The first book that I read in January was The Well of Ascension, and that book is most probably gonna make it into my top list of the end of the year of 2014 because it's the second book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, and that book just basically blew my mind. I'm not gonna tell you what it is about because you actually have to read Mistborn in order. It would just spoil the fun. And if you want to know a synopsis for Mistborn, you can go check out my top 9 books of 2013. I gave a synopsis there. And the thing is that Mistborn could be a standalone novel. It actually even could be a standalone series because there's so much content just pressed into that one book. So I really had absolutely no idea what I was about to expect going to The Well of Ascension. I just absolutely loved it, and I've been trying to get a certain girl on BookTube to finally read it ever since I finished it in the beginning of January. And I'm just gonna, you know, try to guilt trip you right now by calling you out in public. Go read it, go read it, go read it. Especially since I did read the book that you forced upon me, which I'm gonna talk about later. So yeah, guys, go read Mistborn, and then go read The Well of Ascension. And I'm gonna read The Heroes of Ages, and I'm probably just gonna, you know, die happily after that. The second book that I read in January it's kind of a funny story by Ned Vezzini, and this is a contemporary novel, I would say, and it's about a boy who deals with depression and his journey. And the thing with this book is actually that Ned Vezzini, the author, committed suicide this December. So reading this book, I constantly questioned, or it was kind of morbid reading this book because I was hyper aware of what the content of the story was, what the author was trying to say with it, and it just made me wonder how much of himself he put into this novel, obviously because he wrote it. And for the longest time I actually wanted to give this novel 4 out of 5 stars in Goodreads because the story is a bit slow, it drags in some places, but the second half of the book was just really nice and heartwarming that I just couldn't help but give it 5 out of 5 stars. So if you want to read something more in the here and now, more realistic, I guess, more real life problems, then I would definitely recommend checking out. It's kind of a funny story. The third book that I read this month is a currently pretty hyped book on BookTube, and it's Vicious by V. Schwab, or also Victoria Schwab. Reagan over at Peruse Project basically shoved this down my throat, and I read it and I really liked it. I don't really know how to summarize or how to give you a coherent explanation for Vicious. Well, okay, let me try. It's basically about 2 friends named Victor and Eli, and they're really smart university students. And Eli basically works on a thesis topic, which is looking up for causes of extraordinaries, which are people with certain powers. And they basically start experimenting and stuff goes wrong, and they turn into arch enemies, nemesis, and they start a journey in which they try to hunt each other down and plot against each other. And the whole entire book is just basically a long what? And it's just so refreshing to read because it's so different from anything that I've read. The book when you read it, at least in my head, it was very vibrant. It felt kind of like out of a movie or out of a comic book, and there's really not much to say because you just have to kind of experience it. It's hard to describe, I guess. So if you like superheroes, anti-heroes, and stuff like that, go check out Vicious by B. Schwab. Highly recommend. I really loved it. After Vicious, I got into a bit of a reading slump because I kind of tried to keep on reading Feast for Crows. I did make a bit of a progress, but I don't know, whenever it comes to that book, I get a little bit lazy. And so in order to get myself out of the reading slump, I decided to read The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. It's basically of a girl named Mara Dyer, and she has hallucinations after an accident, and the book, or the series, deals with her trying to, you know, get through these hallucinations. And I liked the book. It is very enjoyable to read. Okay, I'm sorry, but the one thing that I have to say is that, you know, that the line, which a lot of booktubers have already talked about, the breath that you forgot to hold. I have to quote something here because this is getting a bit ridiculous. Okay, it's not in the first book, but I actually read The Evolution, which is the second book in the Mara Dyer series of Mara Dyer afterwards, right, back to back. And there are 3 cases in that book where the first one, not even being Mara, but her mother. My mother let out a breath I hadn't noticed she's been holding. Like, what? Why on earth would you pay attention to how your mother is breathing? Unless she's dying and lying on the floor and not breathing, why would you care? Why would you notice if she's holding a breath or not? Seriously. And then there's 2 more occasions where Mara doesn't realize that she held a breath. And after that, I was just done with that book. I was just like, YA in all its glory. But other than that, I actually enjoyed The Evolution, as everybody said, a lot more than The Unbecoming, and I am gonna read The Retribution. I'm not really that in shock of the cliffhanger at the end of book 2 because I think I kind of know where it's gonna go, but it's really interesting, and if you want to read a little bit of a darker YA book, then go check out the Mara Dyer series. And the last book that I read in January has actually also been making its rounds through BookTube, and it's Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, because I was on Sanderson withdrawal and I needed something to fix me up, and Steelheart is considered his YA novel, but I don't really feel like it's that YA. It's more, Brandon Sanderson mostly writes fantasy, and this one is science fiction, and it's about anti-heroes. It's basically about these people called epics, which are normal people who suddenly, out of unknown reasons, got superpowers, and instead of helping the people, which you would expect from superheroes, they turn into evil dictators and govern them and suppress the normal people. And one of these people is called Steelheart. And one day, Steelheart goes into a bank trying to suppress this other epic who is just killing random people in this bank. And the main character's protagonist, David, his father, accidentally manages to hurt Steelheart, who is this invincible superhero. And because Steelheart is afraid that people are gonna notice his weakness, he just kills everybody and just sinks the whole entire bank, and everybody dies, and that's what happens in the first chapter. And then the story is basically about David trying to figure out a way to bring down Steelheart. There are a lot of plot twists going on, but the thing was that I actually managed to predict about 90% of them, which I'm not saying. The book is not predictable. And I talked to some people on Twitter about it, and they're all like, no, I didn't see it coming. But for me, I just read it and I was like, it's this, it's this, it's this. I still give it 5 out of 5 stars because the story was just really, really good, and it really, really captured my attention. And I love Brandon Sanderson's writing because it's so easy to get through. It's so to the point. It's just very clear. And if you want some nice, cool superhero fantasy, the book reads like a movie. Like everybody says, it reads like a movie, and it's true. So these were all the things that I've read in January, and tell me what you've read as every month. Tell me if you've read any of the books that I've read and what you think about them, and we shall discuss. So that's it. Peace out from Jane.